guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be working on some pruning out in the garden. We're going to take care of our blackberries and raspberries, which grew so beautifully last year. I'm super happy with how they're doing. And then we are going to do a little bit of willow tree pruning because one of our willows that it's really close to our driveway, it's covering part of our driveway and it's hitting cars as they go by. So we're going to take care of that today. Now I've brought some raspberry canes into the flower shed. That's where we're at right now. You can see the orchard right outside. Because it is a little bit warmer in here. I ran the heater for just like 10 minutes and it just warmed it up beautifully. And our neighbors that have a house right by our raspberry beds, I think they're building a shed today. I think that's what's going in. So it's a little bit noisy out there. We did put together a fairly in-depth video on raspberries last year. We'll link it down below, but I'll run through a few of the points just really quickly. So the only part of the raspberry that's perennial is the crown and the roots of the plant. So the part that's right at the soil level and right below. That's the part that will establish and come back year after year. The branches, like what I just showed you on the table, also known as canes, those are biennial. So they only live 2 years before you need to cut them out. Sometimes you'll hear first year canes referred to as primo canes and second year flora canes. I just usually call them first year and second year because it's easier. And they'll act differently based on what type of raspberry they are. So summer bearing versus fall/ever bearing types. Your summer bearing raspberries, when the canes come up the first year as primo canes, they're just going to be vegetative growth. You won't get any berries off of those. The second year, when they're flora canes, that's when they bear their crop. Usually it's sometime around like June, middle of summer-ish. And those can be really nice because you're kind of guaranteed a huge big crop all at one time if you like to do a lot of canning, jams, freezing, that sort of thing. Kind of like strawberries. You know, there's a June bearing and a ever bearing on strawberries as well. So here's an example of what you would see as a first year cane on a summer bearing raspberry. See, this cane does not have any evidence of any berries, just foliar growth, vegetative growth there. So this is the type of cane you would leave and this would bear fruit this year, the second year. Now, if you see something like this in your patch, see the evidence of berries from last year? This cane would be its second year, and so it would be done. You would cut this out and let the plant send all of its energy into the second year growth. The growth cycle on your fall/ever bearing type is a little bit different in that you get some produce on your first year canes, unlike the summer bearing type. So they come up, they'll put on a lot of leafy growth, but then toward the end of the season, you get a little bit of berry production, like late summer, early fall. The following year on that same cane, you will get an early crop if you keep it. So like on this one right here, this actually came from my ever-bearing patch. You can see that last year, this was a first year cane. It came up, it produced fruit right on the very tippy top. So what I would do if I wanted to have an early crop this year, I would come in and clip right below where it produced fruit, and I'd leave the rest of this on the plant. And then it would produce more berries right here. So the second year cane would essentially be producing an earlier harvest, all the while the plant is producing more brand new canes, first year canes, that will produce for you again in the fall. So if you prune them, you know, kind of like I just showed you, taking off the tip of first year growth, letting it fruit a second year, you can have 2 crops in a year. The other method you can use, which is what I'm gonna do this year, is just mowing them all down this time of year. Late winter, early spring, you forfeit your first crop. So we won't have an early crop. They're usually a lot smaller than your next crop anyway, but what that does is that plant will have a ton of energy to send into brand new growth for that year, and it almost guarantees you a huge bumper crop of big, beautiful fruit. I like that method because one, it's way easier. I can just take my battery operated hedger and just zip them all down really quickly. The job is fast. I don't have to stand there, you know, and decide what to keep and what to get rid of and all that business, but also it alleviates the harvest season. And I know that sounds kind of weird because when you plant something, you want as much of the season to harvest from it as possible, but we have a lot of things going on in our garden, a lot of things to harvest. Sometimes it's nice to know it's all coming kind of within one window instead of needing to keep up on it all through the whole season. We're also going to be pruning our blackberries out there, which they grow very similarly to raspberries in that their crowns and roots are the perennial part. Canes are a 2-year biennial thing. Most varieties will only produce fruit on second year canes. So if you know you have that type of variety, you can just cut any cane that produced fruit off the past year. You can cut those down, leave the ones that didn't produce fruit. So that's basically how we're going to be treating half of our blackberries. The other half will fruit on first and second year. And I don't know how many varieties will do that, but ours are Primark 45s, and they will do the 2-year produce thing on their canes, which is awesome. So we'll do a little bit more selective pruning on those. Anything that produced on the tips last year, we'll just cut the tip off. And then anything that produced lower on in the branch, we can cut those canes completely out. I don't, again, anticipate a whole lot of pruning because they're such small plants right now. We have black satin, triple crown, and Primark 45s out there. And we got some delicious fruit off of them. Just a handful, but a little bit last year. They were really tasty. So here are our berry beds. We've got our blackberries here. We've got fall gold raspberries here. The bed isn't quite filled up. And heritage raspberries here. So both of these are ever-bearing types. And if we get up close on these, you can see how many berries we got. I mean, it was an intense year. That was the second year for them. This will be the third. So you can see that they're very, very thick. What we're going to do today is just take them all down. And then as they grow, we're going to start thinning them out. Because like this was good spacing for last year. You kind of want 4 to 6 inches between each cane, which if you look, you know, there's plenty of space between all the canes. But if this year we let all that comes up in this bed grow, it would be way too thick because raspberries just spread so darn fast. Fall golds produced beautifully as well. Oh my goodness, they're so good. This is my favorite raspberry. But same kind of business. We're gonna trim them back, and then as they grow up, we will thin them out. You can see we made it back to about halfway with little starts. What we do is as they pop up from underneath the beds, because raspberries will do that, we dig them out and we've been popping them in the beds, but it's usually when it's really hot. So sometimes they take, sometimes they don't. It looks like those did take right in here. We'll have a bunch of babies come up, but we'll have to work on filling the rest of it this year. Our blackberries here, they're all a semi-trailing variety. So we did put them in the trellising system. You can see I need to do some work, oh my goodness, on getting these corralled back in here. So boy, I don't even know if I have any examples of any of these oh, right here. We got a little bit of fruit last year. So like these canes right here on these first 4, because these are types that only produce on second year wood, we will take these canes completely out. But if we follow this one didn't produce any berries. So I'm going to just train this back in to its trellising system. All the blackberries are thornless, so those will be easy to work with, but the raspberries are not. They are full of thorns, so I will be wearing gloves for those. I'll be using my Falcos for the blackberry pruning and then my hedge trimmers for the raspberries. Guys, they're all done, cut back and fertilized, ready to go for the season. We might come in and restain these boards. They're looking a little bit worn, but overall they've held up super, super well. These are 30 feet long, and the interior from the inside of the board to the other inside of the board is 3 feet. So just to give you an idea there of how much planting space we have. And we started out planting about like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in between each 8-foot section here, or it's roughly 8 feet. And going into season number 3, you can see how quickly they fill in. It's just nuts how fast these grow. And it's been really fun because especially with these heritage raspberries, you know, this whole 30-foot bed is filled already. So when they start to sucker out from underneath, Bethany's been digging them up, or I dig them up and we give them to friends and just kind of pass them around to whoever wants some. And I ended up with a small pile of blackberries today. Look at these right here. This is where like a branch had dipped down into the soil and rooted. So I just cut them off, dug them up, and I'll go put these in some soil and we'll find a home for them. We won't give any of the fall golds away until our bed is completely filled, and then we'll start passing those out as well. The blackberries do look quite a bit better than they did. I stripped some of the leaves off, but some of them didn't want to come off. In fact, they look like pretty nice. I don't know what the deal is. I don't have a ton of experience with blackberries, but I don't know if it's typical for them to hang on to leaves, but there's quite a bit of green going on. So this will be our second season with these blackberries, and this is the first time I've actually ever grown them in my home landscape. So it's been kind of a fun experiment. I do know that the blackberries especially like it to be more acidic. We have such high pH soil that we use soil acidifier, so you saw me add a bunch of that, and then I added hollytone. We were out of berry tone, so hollytone is really great to use too on something like this. So if that's what you have, definitely give that a shot. And we're starting to apply fertilizer. I know it's just the end of February now, but because our spring season isn't really wet, it typically is a little bit later on after things start to wake up, which is perfect timing. So the stuff just kind of hangs out until we start getting moisture, or until we turn our drip system on, which usually sometime in March, maybe toward the end of March. So it really works out well that we can kind of apply it a little bit early when things aren't actively growing, because it'll still be there when the plants wake up and start going for it. You know, we've got 4 little grape plants right here we put in last year too. We will prune those on a different day. We'll start pruning and training those. But for now, we need to run and prune the willow tree before I run out of time. It actually started to snow a little bit on us there for a minute. There's a dark cloud coming. I didn't think it was supposed to be crummy this afternoon. Feels good out here. Okay, here we are at the willow tree. You can see the driveway where the gator is, and it is pretty wide, and there's plenty of room to drive and not hit the willow tree. But with the trajectory that you kind of come in on this area, you kind of naturally want to hug this space, and the willow tree is just coming out a little bit too far. I don't think we're gonna have to take a whole bunch off, but just a few of these branches, you know, that are doing this sort of thing. I think I should go get some loppers, because I don't think I'm going to be able to reach all of it. This one right here, and then probably shave up just a little bit of that. Okay, I probably need the pole pruner, but I don't think I want to get a step ladder out to get that. No, we'll just get whatever we can reach with these. Gosh, I love this view though so much. I like the willow even more now, if that's possible, with the color of the benches, the teak, with the, it's all pretty. Yep. Love it. Oh, that looks a lot better. I pulled the gator forward so we could see the width there. I do feel like we could take a bit more off right here, but that might mean that we need to ditch a bigger branch, because I already took 3 big branches off of it today. So I want to think about that a little bit, because I think we could possibly remove that one, but I don't want to haul off and do that today. Plus that's a bigger branch. So I would need to get a different tool and possibly a ladder out here. For now though, I think it's going to be much easier and more comfortable to get the cars around. I'm happy with it. See, from this angle, I just can't imagine that branch not being there. So if I spent a little bit more time just kind of shaving this up a bit, there are a few little dead branches in there too I could remove. That might help. And then this is what the gator looks like at the end of a typical work day. I have a pile of blackberry starts. I've got my fertilizer and my tools, a great big branch that forces me to enter from the other location, the other side. and then a trailer full of branches and such. And that is gonna do it for today. Super happy with what we got done out here. You know, just a little bit at a time. I was driving by the vegetable garden, looking at all the raised beds, thinking I need to clean those out. I need to prune the climbing roses. We need to prune and train the grapes. There's still a bunch of clean out to do in the south garden. So it always feels good just to have another thing checked off the list. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful, and we will see you in the next one.